Hey everyone, it's Greg. Welcome back to the channel and thanks for joining me for this episode of Gregg the Artivist. Here I am in the lovely Bos in Den Haag. It's a huge park in the center of the city. I'm having quite a nice day here today, so I thought why not film outside. But let's skip the long introductions this episode and jump straight into it. In part one of my climate story, I discussed my shock and dismay about the climate crisis and how I had fallen into becoming an inactivist, as well as my wake-up call and my realization of my privilege in this world, and also the fact that I too can have a voice about the subject matter that I care about so much via my art. And in part two of my climate story, I discussed more of the climate challenges that we're all going to face over the coming decades, and how for me to feel less overwhelmed, I was kind of focusing my attention to three key areas. Plus I talked about the sort of day-to-day lifestyle changes I had made, plus the things I was doing to help make the more urgent climate action required now become a reality. And so I guess that brings us up to sort of where I am today, discovering Artivism. And following my dream back in November 2021, I didn't then, nor do I now, have it as my intention to be, or even to be seen as an environmentalist or an authority on the climate crisis. You know, I must stress that I see myself first and foremost as an artist. And, you know, this dream simply inspired a piece of art that represents my frustrations of years of watching and reading about climate injustice and the lack of climate action, you know, to the state of being in a climate emergency now. And when I started filming all of this, or the progress of this dream to creation, I simply thought that it would be interesting to have the footage available, you know, if at some point I was actually going to exhibit what I had created. Never did I imagine that it would evolve into this YouTube channel. But I guess it was the months that followed that I realized, you know, my observation of what this project was all about. And I felt more of an obligation as both an artist and a citizen of our planet, you know, whose modern day lifestyle is, you know, having a devastating impact on the future of every living creature and you know, and all future generations. Now, I guess this is where I really begin to see myself evolving from being an artist to an artivist. And as of next time, my climate story is going to start featuring as a standalone episode, and it will feature every other week. And you know, my climate story is not about me telling you this is what you must be doing, as it is as much about following my journey as I'm learning more about the climate crisis and about becoming an artivist, and how that directly outputs the work that I do in my other episode. Now, of course, you know, I really do hope that my channel is creating awareness, and I do hope that it's informative and interesting, but most importantly, I really hope that through watching my journey, that it inspires you to take real climate action yourself. You know, be it discussing the climate crisis with friends, talking about your fears, signing petitions, or sharing your story online. And my hope is that my story shows how little, if we all take action, that the bigger impacts that we need to happen, we can make them happen now. So please do join me for the next episode of my climate story. I look forward to sharing with you the continuation of my journey then. Hey, good morning. This video is a little bit different because normally I'm recording these videos for my own benefit to watch back later, but this one I'm recording at the moment for an unknown audience. But I'll explain all that in just a minute. Essentially, it's been about 3 weeks since I started to learn this 3D modeling software. And although I'm no expert, I really know how to navigate myself around it. I'm really excited to get started for using it on this project. And I'm completely blown away by the endless possibilities that this software actually has to offer. So much so that I've thought of so many different ways that I can bring this project to life that I've actually just ended up getting quite confused. So I'm sitting here this morning over breakfast thinking, come on, Greg, what is it that you really want to achieve here? And the reason why I'm asking that question is because, this project's already evolved a lot from the original dream that I had. I've had a number of different ideas of what the output is going to be. And I'm now thinking that my last idea is that I was going to create a digital piece that's in line with my dream sequences that I've had previously. But I'm wondering, will that have the impact that I really want, being a social digital piece? So that got me asking the question, Greg, what is the impact that you want? And that's actually quite straightforward. I want people to discover this piece of art. I want it to evoke a conversation in them about the seriousness of the climate crisis, about the inactivity of our government, about what they're actually doing at home, and what else they could be doing to take real climate action now, real meaningful action now. I don't want people to become or already be inactivists, thinking that by simply recycling our rubbish and having energy efficient devices at home and traveling on public transport and flying less is enough. I mean, they're all extremely important things, but they are not addressing the bigger issues and the bigger problems that we need to tackle now for real climate action now. So what I did discover whilst I was just learning this 3D modeling software is that essentially I'm creating a blueprint for this sculpture that I could actually use to create the sculpture back in the real world. Something I've never done before. But much like the 3D software, I don't seem to be frightened by trying these things, so that's a good sign. And that took me onto the thought pattern about Artivism. And I was thinking, if I do create this project, if I do create this sculpture in the real world, maybe I could put it into a public space, not behind the barriers of an art gallery, for example, or behind the barriers of particular social medias, or by people waiting for it to be shared amongst other people, where people can actually just kind of discover it in this public space. And, it takes their interest, they can go up, they can walk around it, hopefully they can feel the emotion and the feelings that I had in that dream and what I'm trying to project with this sculpture. And then I could support it all with a documentary about the creation of this project, hence why I'm making this video for an unknown audience at this time. So this super excites me. Again, I am challenging myself, I'm pushing the boundaries here, but like I said, I don't seem to be afraid of that, so that's a good sign. And what the hell do I have to lose? I should just go for it. And I want to be an artist that uses whatever medium they have to visualize or to create what it is that they want to tell the story or whatever. So that's my week planned. It's the start of a new week and I have my task list here ready. I intend on creating the first piece in the 3D modeling software. I want to look into, how can I use that created piece in that 3D space and how could I bring that out into the real world? I want to think about the materials that I want to use. I want integrity in this piece of art. I'm super passionate about it. That has to come through. I'm thinking I want it to be biodegradable, and I'm thinking of, obviously it has to be safe still and sturdy, but I'm thinking of using recycled cardboard, and I want to actually build the first piece. Now, I don't know how long any of this is going to take. I'm just setting myself out as the task this week. So I'm just going to get stuck into it and see where I end up. So wish me luck and we'll see where I get to. Hey, good morning. So it's been a few weeks since I 3D modeled and worked out how to bring that into the real world and built my first piece, and it didn't go without a lot of lessons along the way. But here are the final pieces of the clog, and I'm super happy about this. I managed to use recycled cardboard, and I found a natural gum paper tape to use as the adhesive, which is completely biodegradable as well. So that's really important for me to keep the integrity. And the great thing about it is with the geometrical shapes, it really forms a very, very hard construction. So it's going to take a lot of pressure to crush that. I just really hope that this tape is going to hold up, but only time will tell. And if not, then I'm going to have to find an alternative solution. Now, it was a bit painful cutting all these pieces by hand. It took an enormous amount of time, so I do need to rethink about how I'm going to do that in the future to make it a little bit more productive. But overall, I really enjoyed the process. And the clog is important because, as part of the sculpture as a whole, it represents industry and destructive industry, particularly with its kind of more chainsaw edges to this clog. It's not perfect like a clog in a clock, for example. And as we know that in industry, we're pretty much going to have to change how we produce just about everything by 2050 if we want to get our carbon emissions to zero. And also industry and fossil fuels account for about 75% of all of our CO2 emissions. So overall, I'm happy with this. Big learning curve actually, which I don't want to forget to mention, is that I designed this, and if I had built the way that I had designed it to the exact dimensions, the whole sculpture would have ended up being about 22 meters high. Now, I'm ambitious, but that's a little bit over ambitious for me. So I've visually scaled this down when I was building it, which is going to be interesting when I'm designing the next pieces. And I'm hoping that the whole sculpture now will stand about 4.5 to 5 meters high, which I think will be a great size in a public space because it will give people that real opportunity to walk around it and really look up to it like I did in my dream. Now, the interesting thing about that is that although I have ceilings high enough here in my lounge room, the rest of my house has kind of very normal 3-meter high ceilings. So how I'm going to construct this is I'm not 100% sure, plus the fact that I have to get it back out of the building. So I'm thinking that building it in pieces and then constructing it somewhere else at a later stage is the best idea. So next I'm going to jump on to sculpting the head, and the head has the 3 faces on it, and those 3 faces are representing the meat and fishing industries and fossil fuels. And again, these 3 industries are the things that I'm kind of focusing my attention not to be overwhelmed by all the reasons, that are causing the climate crisis. So I'm excited to get on with that. However, we're just a week away from Christmas here, and I'm going to now put this aside until the new year. I'm going to enjoy the festive season, but yeah, I'm super excited to get started in the new year. So I'm looking forward to seeing where we get to.
So unfortunately, that's all we have time for in today's episode. Remember to please join me for my climate story as it becomes a standalone episode from now on, and that will be featuring every other week. And as always, if you haven't done so already and you enjoyed today's episode, please do give this video a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel, and please do click on that bell to be updated for future episodes. I cannot express enough how these simple actions go such a long way in helping the YouTube algorithm understand that I even exist on their platform and put my content in front of other like-minded people. And if you'd like any more information about today's episode, please consider joining me over at Patreon. There are tons of benefits to become a member of the Gregg the Artivist community. You can read about all the different levels of membership and the benefits that each of them have to offer from the link in the description box below. And finally, do also follow me over on Instagram. Soon I'll be commencing small takeaways on how you can fight for real climate action now in ways that are much easier than you may have originally thought. So until next time, thank you so much for joining me for today's episode. Please take care, and remember that you too can have a voice.